Imagine a time in the distant past, more than 4,000 years ago, when two different groups of people lived in peace and harmony in the Mesopotamian region. The Sumerians were the first to arrive, a people with advanced intelligence and technology, and the Akkadians, a younger group of Semitic origin. The Sumerians were mysterious, with an unknown place of origin and a language unlike any other. Despite this, they managed to develop an incredible level of culture and technology, which spread throughout the region and even beyond. Their greatest achievement was the invention of the first writing system, a monumental event that changed the course of human history forever. As civilization in Mesopotamia began to take shape, reaching its peak, the Sumerian people were already falling from grace. As the Sumerians began to decline, the Akkadians stepped in to adopt some of the customs and ways of life left behind. One such influence was their writing system, which the Akkadians used to transcribe their own language, ushering in a new era of communication and connection. I will thus focus on the Akkadians and their gods. In ancient Mesopotamia, the cities were like their own little kingdoms, with a king who also acted as head of the clergy. Each city had its own special god who was the head of the pantheon and had a temple where all religious and political affairs were organized. These gods were seen as ruling over their own gang of officials, counselors, and servants, just like a king would in the human world. With the diverse array of divinities that comprised the Mesopotamian pantheon, it's no surprise that certain gods held a special place in the hearts of their followers. These great gods were revered beyond their respective cities or kingdoms, gaining widespread influence across the region. And while each deity represented the divine world in a unique way, these select few brought a sense of unity to the rich tapestry of Mesopotamian mythology. In the mystical realm of Akkadian and Sumerian gods, there reigned a powerful triad of divine beings. Anu, king of the sky and ruler of Uruk, led the charge alongside Enlil, lord of the atmosphere and master of Nippur. And then there was Enki Orie, creator extraordinaire and sage of the Apsu, who held court in glorious Eridu. Amongst them were three gods that embodied the power of nature, including Utu, or Shamash, the almighty sun deity, Nana or Sin, the mysterious moon god, and Adad, the fearsome master of thunderstorms. They had a fervent devotion to the goddess Inanna or Ishtar. She reigned supreme as both the embodiment of love, war, and the planet Venus. Ishtar held court in Uruk alongside the powerful god Anu. And as time marched on, the pantheon expanded to include the likes of Marduk, known as the Lord in Babylon, and Ashur, the glorious god of Assyria. Mesopotamian religion held that gods inhabited sanctuaries through their physical representations as statues. These gods were believed to possess a powerful force that centered around their statues, making them an integral part of the religion. This belief was what led to conquerors exiling the statues of their vanquished enemies, effectively robbing them of their god's power and subjecting them to theirs. In Mesopotamian thought, everything in the universe was believed to have its own will, stemming from the divine. These wills were organized into specific categories, ranging from gods to minerals, with each category having a vital role to play in maintaining order. Even social classes such as kings, priests, and soldiers were seen as integral parts of this grand system. However, deviating from one's assigned role could have dire consequences, throwing off the delicate balance of the universe. When rulers act as laborers, commoners believe themselves to be divine, or men take on traditionally feminine traits, the balance and stability of the world may be irreparably disrupted. In short, the ancient Mesopotamians saw the world as a complex web of interconnected wills, all working together in harmony. Mesopotamian religion was a complex system of cause and effect interactions that linked every object and event in the world of the gods and human beings. The gods were perceived as active individualized people who had the power to influence the universe and the creatures that lived in it. The world was highly unstable, with the gods behaving like men and controlling their own destinies. Through this intricate hierarchy, the Mesopotamians crafted a unique worldview that celebrated the interconnectedness of all things. In ancient Mesopotamia, the gods were believed to have created humans to serve as their obedient sacrificial vessels. It was believed that the gods created humans to serve as their slaves, providing them with sacrifices to sustain their divine beings. According to mythologies, these gods were powerful beings, each with their own unique personality and physical form. They were capable of love, anger, deceit, and even petty squabbles among themselves. The only thing that set them apart from humans was their unparalleled perfection. They possessed unmatched beauty, intelligence, strength, and most notably, immortality. Mesopotamians understood the unpredictability of life and the pain that can come with it. Their gods were not simply human-like but instead represented abstract ideas through different forms and attributes. Marduk, king of the gods, was depicted as a fierce dragon, while Ishtar, goddess of war and sexuality, took on the image of a mighty lion. Ea, the father of the gods and creator figure, was represented by a scepter. The Mesopotamians recognized that divinity was multifaceted, and their artwork depicted this beautifully. These animalistic forms aren't just for show either. Each god is linked to a specific planet or star, giving them an even greater sense of power and omnipotence. Ishtar, for instance, is associated with the planet Venus, and appears as a stunning 8-peaked star enclosed in a circle. It's no wonder that the ancient Mesopotamians held their gods in such high regard. The Mesopotamian people were captivated by the celestial bodies, and this translated into their belief that the gods existed in the stars. The Mesopotamians were also pioneers in the field of astronomy and astrology, showing an understanding of the cosmos that was unmatched for centuries. The Mesopotamian pantheon isn't just a collection of gods and goddesses, but a reflection of the complexity of human life. Every event, from the movement of the stars to the growth of the rivers, was thought to be a direct result of divine action. Even the social hierarchy was believed to be structured by the gods. Happiness was seen as a gift from the divine, while misery was a punishment for sin, even if the wrongdoing wasn't intentional. To better understand the divine will and avoid future misfortunes, the Mesopotamians developed intricate divination procedures, including analyzing the entrails of animals. It's a fascinating insight into a world where the spiritual and practical intertwine in ways we may never fully comprehend. The ancient Mesopotamians believed that astrology and divination could not only predict major events but also govern the most intimate aspects of daily life, including matters of love and lust. They saw sex as intricately connected to powerful, enigmatic forces that could be both creative and destructive. As a result, societal norms surrounding sexuality were strictly enforced, with any deviations carrying potentially catastrophic consequences. In the eyes of Mesopotamian culture, sex was no trivial matter. The ancient Near East worshipped a goddess named Ishtar, a fascinating figure who embodied seemingly conflicting traits. She was both a fierce and skilled warrior, as well as the embodiment of feminine grace and beauty. Her unique combination of attributes made her sexuality ambiguous and mysterious. Across different cultures, Ishtar's power and complexity earned her many names and a devoted following. Ishtar, the ancient goddess of love and war, embodies multiple identities that have fascinated scholars and artists alike. While some depict her as a fierce warrior with a bushy beard, others see her as a symbol of freedom and sexual liberation, untethered by traditional motherly duties. Her celestial form is equally varied and fluid, at times masculine as the morning star, at others feminine as the night star. The many titles she's been given attest to her complexity. Despite her controversial reputation as a temple prostitute, Ishtar remains a powerful figure whose influence resonates to this day. You might think that the concept of sacred prostitution had something to do with a cult of sexuality, but it was actually so much more than that. Ishtar was a powerful symbol of renewal and growth, and the sexual act was closely tied to her role as a goddess of fertility. One of the most significant rituals dedicated to Ishtar was the hierogamy, which involved a priestess of the goddess and the king of the city engaging in a sacred marriage during the New Year festival, Feast of Akwetey. This union was believed to ensure the country's prosperity and growth. Ishtar's importance in the realm of human sexuality is further emphasized in the mythological narratives that tell the tales of her exploits. These captivating stories bring to life the complex and multifaceted nature of this goddess, and offer a glimpse into the beliefs and customs of an ancient civilization. So come on, let's delve into the world of Ishtar and discover the wonders of ancient Mesopotamia. In ancient Mesopotamia, Ishtar held a prominent position in their belief system as the goddess of pleasurable love. She was associated with the creative act of life, which began with the union of two gods or the fertilization of the earth. Even though Ishtar was related to fertility and the renewal of the world, her role did not extend to pregnancy or childbirth. Rather, Ishtar safeguarded a sexuality that was not strictly limited to procreation and carved a path for individuals to freely and openly express themselves without conforming to traditional gender norms or heterosexual relationships. Hidden within the ancient mythologies lies a figure with a penchant for romance and a cruel streak. Her roster of lovers is vast, but those who fell out of favor met a truly unfortunate end. Her domain was filled with a motley crew of sacred and earthly prostitutes, with whom she indulged in her many delights. Among them was a patroness of society's most misunderstood and fluid members, defining themselves by the image of their goddess through gender ambiguities and radical transformations. These beings of indeterminate gender are often referred to as Asinu and Kurgaru. Translating these terms is complicated, as they are related to a cuneiform sign that denotes a man-woman. According to their origin myth, in the descent of Ishtar to the underworld, Enki or Ea created a being whom he called Kurgaru, in the Sumerian version, and Asinu, in the Akkadian version, and ordered it to free the imprisoned goddess from the underworld. In the continuation of the narrative and other texts dedicated to Ishtar, these beings are explicitly assigned to serve the goddess and associated with feminine names that designate sacred prostitutes. Reading from the origin myth. This I erected, an indestructible throne. There I gave daggers and swords to the Kurgaru, tambourines, and drums to the Asinu, and changed the sex of the Asinu. Mesopotamian mythology and worship celebrated the presence of people who didn't fit rigid gender expectations. Surprisingly, these transvestites were embraced by society and had a recognized role in the culture. It's incredible to think that even in ancient times, there was space for diversity and acceptance. Sexuality in Mesopotamian society wasn't shrouded in taboo, but instead was seamlessly woven into the fabric of social life. And it wasn't just about perpetuating the species either. The different manifestations of sexuality were influenced by a person's social status. So, if you were a transvestite, you were in the passive role, and if you were an aristocrat, you were the one taking charge. This all goes to show that society is not monolithic and everyone plays a different part. The wisdom of the Mesopotamians and their beliefs were on par with Old Testament and Egyptian wisdom. They cherished the present moment, human rights, bodily needs, and desires, even as they accepted death as an inevitable fate decreed by the gods. In Mesopotamian society, sexuality was seen as a joyful part of life, not just restricted to heterosexual relationships. However, when it came to homosexuality, there were two distinct groups: the priests or the prostitutes of the goddess Ishtar, who were often labeled as dogs in the biblical text. They were considered part of her holy clergy. Professional homosexuals. They occupied a low social standing, though they were still considered integrated members of society. The second group were men who held high positions in society, but may have visited the Asinu and Kurgaru as part of their worship of Ishtar, or had relationships that were deemed socially acceptable but not permanent. In ancient Neo-Babylonian texts, there are intriguing references to love between men. However, the same cannot be said for love between women. Women were seen as objects to be possessed by men, and their sexuality was only valued in terms of procreation and pleasing their husbands. So while some texts hinted at the existence of same-sex relationships, it seems that lesbian love was often overlooked or ignored entirely. In oracles and enchantments that appear in Neo-Babylonian astrological treatises, for example, we find advice and prayers designed to arouse love. Love of a man for a woman, sign of Libra. Love of a woman for a man, sign of Pisces. Love of a man for a man, sign of Scorpio. To make a woman come to make love, sign of Aries. We come to the fascinating world of divination in which everyday acts have prophetic value. Among the many curious predictions, we find one that hints at a curious hidden power dynamic. If a man sleeps with his equal from behind, he will become the undisputed leader among his peers and brothers. However, not all sexual encounters bode well. For example, a man who sleeps with an Asinu risks suffering an uncertain fate. Another twist comes with the Draseku, whose intimate company triggers a year of terror for any man who dares to engage with them. And the consequences of sleeping with a slave born in one's own household are equally dire, as a harsh fate may await the daring perpetrator. Amidst these bizarre and enigmatic predictions, one can't help but wonder what other secrets the realm of divination might hold. The ancient Mesopotamian codes of law and societal norms of the time had a unique perception of homosexual relations. Interestingly, there seemed to be a nuanced distribution of roles between partners, characterized by terms like active and passive, or dominant and dominated. In one case, a man who penetrates another man of the same social status is viewed as dominating him. Conversely, a master who takes on a submissive role and allows his slave to penetrate him is believed to invite misery upon himself. It's fascinating to note that same-sex relations between men were hardly mentioned in Mesopotamian codes of law, except in specific and extreme cases such as incest, which was punishable by death. The mindset towards homosexual relations may have been very different, but it highlights the importance of power dynamics even in intimate relationships. In the Assyrian laws, we find homosexual relations in a series of cases dealing with false accusations linked to prostitution and rape. Paragraph 18. If a man speaks to his partner, man of his rank, either in private or in a public complaint, saying, "Everyone sleeps with your wife, I can prove my charges against her," but is unable to prove his charges and does not prove them, he will be given 40 strokes of the cane, will complete a full month of royal slaughter, they will cut their hair, and you will have to pay for a 10 talent. Paragraph 19. If a man furtively spreads the rumor about his partner, saying, "Everyone sleeps with him," or if in a public complaint he tells him, "Everyone sleeps with you, I can prove my charges," but is unable to prove his charges and does not prove them, this man will receive 50 beats of a cane, will complete a full month of royal slaughter, they will cut their hair, and you will have to pay for a 10 talent. Paragraph 20. If a man sleeps with his neighbor and the charges against him are proven and he is found guilty, they will sleep with him and make him a eunuch. In the cases at hand, homosexuality isn't under fire. Instead, it's an act of violence that is the main focus. The culprit, who is solely to blame, must be held accountable and face the prescribed penalties. The law in question appears to condemn the penetration of a man, which causes them to lose their social status. Punishment, in this situation, is tied to the idea of reciprocity. It should go without saying, the law is focused on violations, not relationships between two consenting parties. It's clear from the language used that one of the men is the guilty party. Although homosexuality is not considered a socially reprehensible act, it can still face condemnation if it involves violence. However, we must avoid making sweeping generalizations. From the moment when homosexual relationships go beyond the framework of a secondary relationship and prevent men from living a marriage and having offspring, they fall under the blow of public opprobrium. Unmarried men who show homosexual tendencies are identified with the class of prostitutes, since they no longer have the role of free men that corresponds to them in society. Literally, they are unnaturalized.